The Crying Baby in the Cottage. Hello, this is Sarah Kulkens. I want to share a case that still gives me chills to this day. A young couple moved into a small country cottage. Every night around midnight, they heard the sound of a baby crying from the back bedroom. They didn't have children, and when they checked the room, it was empty. At first, they thought they were dreaming. But when their visitors began hearing the same crying, they reached out to me. When I visited the home, the energy in the back bedroom was heavy, like a sadness that hadn't lifted in years. Through my psychic channeling, I discovered the truth. Many decades earlier, a young woman had lost her infant in that very room. The grief was so intense that it left a permanent imprint, replaying like a recording. Once I performed a blessing and helped release the spirit, the crying stopped. The couple finally had peace, and so did the grieving mother. It's a reminder that spirits don't always want to scare us. Sometimes they're simply trapped in their own sorrow, waiting for someone to help them move on. The man at the end of the bed. This story comes from a woman in Melbourne who called me terrified. Every night she woke to see a tall man standing at the end of her bed. He never spoke, never moved, just stood there. She was convinced she was being haunted by something dark. But when I visited her home, I felt no evil. What I felt was protective. As I connected psychically, I received the name Arthur. The woman gasped. Arthur was her late father. He had died suddenly, and she never got to say goodbye. His spirit lingered not to frighten her, but to let her know he was still watching over her. Once she understood, her fear turned to comfort. From then on, she felt him not as a shadow, but as a guardian presence. The smell of roses. Sometimes spirits use our senses in unusual ways. A client of mine kept waking in the night to the strong smell of roses. She had no flowers in the house, no perfumes, nothing. Yet the fragrance was overwhelming, so real, it woke her from sleep. When I tuned in, I felt the loving energy of her grandmother, who had always worn rose perfume. She was reaching out, not with words or visions, but with scent. A reminder of her love and a sign that she was close. After I shared this with her, my client began to smile when she smelled roses instead of feeling unsettled. It became a message of comfort rather than fear. The child's imaginary friend. I once worked with a family whose little boy insisted he had a friend who played with him in his room. The parents brushed it off as imagination until toys started moving on their own. When I entered the house, the air was charged with a childlike energy. I connected, and what I found was extraordinary. The spirit was another child who had died many years before in the same home. He simply wanted company and had gravitated toward the boy. We gently explained to the spirit that it was time to move on. The boy stopped speaking of his friend, and the toys settled. The family was relieved, and the spirit child found peace. The haunted radio. One of the strangest cases I've seen involved an old radio. A family complained that it would switch on at night, playing static at full volume. They even unplugged it, but the issue persisted. When I visited, the energy in the lounge was unmistakable. I called out, and immediately the radio burst to life. A man's voice whispered through the static. It turned out to be the spirit of a grandfather who had loved that radio in life. He wasn't trying to scare anyone. He just wanted his family to know he was still present. After blessing the home, the disturbances stopped. It was a powerful reminder. Our loved ones often reach through technology because it's an easy way for energy to interact. The girl at the window. This final story is from a house I investigated years ago. Neighbors kept reporting a girl staring out of the upstairs window even when the house was empty. When I entered, the upstairs room was icy cold. In my mind's eye, I saw a young girl, no more than 12, waiting. She had lived in that house long ago and died of illness. always hoping her family would return. I helped her cross to the light, reassuring her she was not alone. From that night on, the neighbours never saw her again. It was a bittersweet moment, proof that some spirits linger simply because they're waiting for love that never came. Closing note, these are just a few of the countless cases I've encountered as a seventh-generation psychic, following in the footsteps of my mother, the famous white witch Sarah Kulkens. If you've experienced something unusual, such as a presence, a haunting, or a sign from the other side, know that you are not alone. Visit me at www.kerrykulkens.com.au for guidance, readings, or help with a spirit that may be troubling you. Sarah Kulkens.